Act 1. The world after the flood in the beginning. After the great waters had receded and the earth had dried, humanity emerged from the ark into a world washed clean. The rainbow hung in the sky as God's promise, and Noah's descendants multiplied across the land. Where ideas flowed freely between minds, where cooperation came naturally, where the barriers that divide us today simply did not exist. This was the power of unity, the strength that comes when human hearts and minds work as one. But this was not yet the world of many tongues and scattered nations that we know today. No, in those ancient days, all of humanity spoke with one voice, shared one language, understood one another perfectly. Here, between the great rivers, the soil was rich and black, perfect for growing crops to feed their growing numbers. Here, they discovered something remarkable: clay that could be shaped and fired into bricks, and tar that bubbled up from the earth itself, perfect for binding stone to stone. For the first time in human history, they had the tools to build not just shelters, but monuments that could touch the very heavens. Picture, if you will, a world where every word spoken was understood by every ear that heard it. As the generations passed and the earth's population grew, the children of Noah began to journey eastward, following the rising sun toward new horizons. They traveled in great caravans, families and clans moving together, their voices joining in songs that echoed across the vast plains. And in their wandering, they came upon a land that would change the course of human history forever. It was in the plain of Shinar, in the heart of what we now call Mesopotamia, that they found their promised land. Act 2. The great ambition among the descendants of Noah was a man whose name would echo through the ages: Nimrod, the mighty hunter, the first great king after the flood. Nimrod was a man of vision and ambition, a leader who could see beyond the horizon of the possible into the realm of the extraordinary. Under his guidance, the people of Shinar began to dream not just of survival, but of greatness. "Come," Nimrod declared to the assembled multitudes, his voice carrying across the plain like thunder. "Let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." The bricks were laid with mathematical precision, each course perfectly level, each wall rising straight and true toward the heavens above. The people worked with a unity of purpose that had never been seen before and would never be seen again. Visitors came from distant lands to marvel at its height and the skill of its builders. Stories spread of the great work in Shinar, of the people who dared to build a stairway to the stars. And with each passing day, each new course of bricks, their confidence grew. They began to believe that they were no longer merely human, but something greater, something that could challenge the very order of creation itself. They shared not just a language, but a dream, a vision of what humanity could accomplish when it set its mind to a single goal: a city that would be the wonder of the world, and at its heart, a tower that would pierce the very clouds and stand as a testament to human achievement for all time. No longer would they be wanderers, scattered, and vulnerable. They would be united, powerful, remembered forever. What a vision it was! The work began with the enthusiasm that only comes from a shared dream. Every man, woman, and child had a role to play. Some dug clay from the riverbanks, their hands shaping the earth into perfect bricks. They began to speak of themselves as the equals of the gods, as beings who could bridge the gap between earth and heaven through their own skill and determination. "Look what we have built," they cried. "Look how high we have climbed. Surely there is nothing that we cannot accomplish, no height we cannot reach, no dream too grand for our united hands to make real." Others tended the great kilns that fired the clay until it rang like stone when struck. Still others hauled the tar that would bind their creation together, black and sticky and strong as iron. Day by day, the tower grew. First one story, then 2, then 10, then 20. As the tower rose higher, so did their pride. The tower became more than a building. It became a symbol of human potential unleashed. Act 3. Divine intervention. But high above the clouds, beyond the reach of human eyes, the Lord looked down upon the work of his children. He saw the tower rising like a spear thrust toward heaven, saw the pride that burned in human hearts, heard the boastful words that echoed from the construction site below. For he knew what the builders had forgotten in their pride, that there is a difference between reaching toward heaven and trying to storm its gates. There is a difference between aspiring to greatness and claiming to be God's. The tower was not just a building. It was a declaration of independence from the divine order, a challenge to the very structure of creation. And the Lord said, "Behold, the people are one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do." In that moment, as the divine presence touched the earth, something fundamental shifted in the world. A foreman called out for more bricks, but the words that came from his mouth were not the words his mind had formed. The carefully coordinated work ground to a halt as confusion spread like wildfire through the ranks of the builders. Tools were dropped, arguments broke out, and the great project that had united them all became the source of their division. A worker responded, but his reply made no sense to the ears that heard it. Slowly, inexorably, the gift of common language began to slip away. The unity that had been humanity's greatest strength was about to become its greatest weakness. It was not fear that moved the Almighty, but wisdom. And so the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men had built. It began as a whisper, a strange confusion in the minds of the workers. Imagine the growing panic, as friend could no longer understand friend, as husband could not comprehend wife, as children spoke words their parents had never heard. Where once there had been one people with one purpose, now there were dozens of groups, each speaking their own tongue, each unable to communicate with the others. The tower, half finished, stood silent and abandoned as its builders scattered in bewilderment and fear. The dream of reaching heaven had become a nightmare of earthly confusion. Act 4. The scattering and legacy. And so the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they ceased building the city. Therefore its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth. The wind whistled through its abandoned chambers, and sand began to drift against its base. In time, the very bricks would crumble, but the memory of what had happened there would endure forever. The unity that had once been humanity's greatest strength was gone, replaced by diversity that would be both blessing and curse for all the generations to come. Perhaps it is this, that human ambition, while noble and necessary, must be tempered with humility, that the desire to achieve greatness must not become the desire to become God's. We see the rich diversity of human culture and thought, the beautiful tapestry of different ways of understanding and expressing truth. In a world where we often speak past one another, where our words are misunderstood, and our intentions misinterpreted, the story reminds us of what we have lost and what we might yet regain. May we remember it well, and may we build wisely in the shadow of its ancient walls, not through building towers to heaven, but through building bridges to one another, not through speaking with one voice, but through learning to truly listen to the many voices that surround us. But we also see the confusion, the misunderstanding, the conflicts that arise when people cannot truly hear one another. And perhaps, in learning the lessons of Babel, we might yet find a way to reach toward heaven, not through pride, but through love, not through conquest, but through understanding, not by making ourselves gods, but by remembering that we are, all of us, children of the same divine source, scattered across the earth, but united still in our deepest hopes and dreams. That unity of purpose is a powerful force, but it must be guided by wisdom rather than pride. And from there, the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. Some traveled north to the mountains, others south to the deserts, still others west toward the great sea. It teaches us that true greatness comes not from building monuments to ourselves, but from building bridges to one another. Not from reaching toward heaven in defiance, but from inviting heaven to reach down to us in grace. Each group carried with them not just their possessions, but their own version of the story, their own understanding of what had transpired at Babel. The great tower stood empty, its unfinished summit reaching toward clouds that would never again echo with the unified voices of its builders. The people, now speaking in tongues unknown to one another, gathered their belongings and their families and began the long journey to new lands. And so were born the nations of the earth, each with its own language, its own customs, its own way of understanding the world. But what are we to make of this ancient tale? What lesson echoes down through the millennia from that abandoned tower in the plain of Shinar? The Tower of Babel stands as an eternal reminder that there are limits to human reach, boundaries that should not be crossed, heights that should not be scaled through pride alone. Today, as we look around our world of many languages and many nations, we see both the blessing and the burden of Babel's legacy. Perhaps the greatest lesson of Babel is not about the danger of human ambition, but about the precious gift of understanding. The tower may have fallen, but the human spirit that built it endures. This is the story of Babel. This is the tale of humanity's greatest ambition and its most profound lesson.